The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, bathing my kitchen in a golden calm. I moved slowly, almost reverently, in the quiet hours before Friendsgiving. The table was already set in crisp linen. I could see the china plates waiting patiently. Pots and pans were arranged on the stove, a turkey gently roasted, filling the air with warm, homey spices. Somewhere, a playlist of familiar songs started up softly, their gentle melodies floating through the rooms. In these moments, alone in my bustling home, everything felt peaceful, like the world outside had hushed itself in preparation for the celebration. I smiled to myself as I pictured our little family of friends converging for this meal. We had hosted a Friendsgiving for years now, a tradition that made this day feel special. This year, it was my turn. My friends would soon arrive with laughter and stories, exchanging hugs in the hallway as they dropped boots and coats by the door. I thought of Josh, who usually talked a mile a minute while chopping vegetables, and of Emily, who always brought those sweet potato marshmallow bites that made everyone tease about our diets. These memories of past gatherings warmed me, helping me breathe out the small worries of today. One friend in particular came to mind, Rachel. Rachel had two small dogs, a lively terrier and a gentle lab mix, whom she adored and brought everywhere. They were practically part of the family. Last year at our Friendsgiving, those dogs had even snoozed under the table during dinner, curling up like two furry little guards. They were cute, and I knew how much she loved them, but honestly, they always made me a bit nervous. I have a cat named Socks who absolutely detests dogs. At the first bark, he hisses and hides, and cleaning up after furry visitors was never my favorite chore. Rachel, being sweet, often tried to keep the dogs calm, but once they escaped to sniff my plants or looked longingly at the food on the counter. Those little moments, though harmless, had been enough to make me uneasy. So, over the months, I had quietly set a rule for gatherings at our place. No pets inside, please. I never made a big announcement. I just didn't invite any animals to the party. It seemed the simplest way to avoid unexpected chaos. After all, I once came home to find muddy paw prints on the couch cushions from an impromptu doggy visit, and I had quietly cleaned them up. A curious nose once caught sight of a dropped piece of potato too close to a hot burner, and I had shooed it away. Those memories were faint, but they were enough to make me plan ahead. This Friendsgiving would be especially busy. There were little ones coming, and I wanted everyone safe and relaxed. So, when I circulated the invitations in our group chat, I gently added a note at the end. Something like, "No pets, please." I thought carefully about how to phrase it so it felt polite. Maybe I wrote, "Dinner at my place at 4 p.m. Also, please no pets, this time. We'll have kids and a lot of cooking." I hit send and immediately felt a flutter in my chest. I hoped it wouldn't hurt anyone's feelings, but I also knew it was my responsibility to keep my home the way I needed it. Not long after, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Rachel. I could almost hear her smile in her words. "Hey, no pets? That means the pups can't come?" she asked, confusion coloring her tone. My stomach did a little flip. I sat down on a stool by the kitchen island, taking a deep breath. I typed back carefully, wanting to be honest but kind. I really would prefer if they don't come this time. It's nothing personal, love them to bits, but I don't want to worry about dog hair or accidents while I'm cooking and with kids around. I hit send. For a moment, I stared at my phone. I hoped she would understand. I imagined her saying softly to her dogs, Be good babies. Instead, her reply came almost immediately, filled with disappointment. Oh, I thought they'd be okay. I have no one else to watch them. My heart sank. I hadn't expected this angle. I typed again, the words trembling on screen. I know, I'm so sorry. I just got worried after last year's little incident, and with so much going on, I thought it might be safer. Rachel's next message was brief and sharp. Fine then. I guess I'll just stay home. My hand froze mid-text. I felt a pang of guilt, listening to the hurt in her words. I fumbled for a response. Please don't feel that way, I wrote, swallowing hard. I really do want you here. I just feel a bit overwhelmed with so much to manage. Silence. The minutes stretched. I put down the phone and turned back to the counter, trying to focus on chopping an apple for the salad, but my hands felt numb. The kitchen was quiet except for the soft hum of the oven and the sudden cold feeling around my heart. I realized I hated this. I hated seeing her upset. I hated that a few words about dogs could create such a gap between us. In those moments, I pulled every comfortable thought I had. The warm smell of apple cider simmering, the gentle strumming of a guitar song on the speaker, even the sight of the tablecloth that I had ironed just for today. Everything that usually made me happy felt off. I realized I might have spoken too firmly. My phone buzzed again. I looked at it with tired eyes. Rachel. I guess I'll find something else to do. My throat tightened. I should have thought of what to say, but my mouth felt dry. I exhaled slowly and typed. Please, I'm sorry. I'm stressed. I just really would love for you to be here. I debated deleting that last part before sending it, but I needed her to know. I hit send. Just as I began to relax into the rhythm of cooking again, another knock came at the door. My heart jumped. Maybe it was Rachel. I swallowed and went to open it. Standing on the porch, umbrella dripping from the cold drizzle, was Rachel, and at her heels were the two dogs on their leashes. My stomach twisted. I managed a smile as I took in the sight. Rachel in her favorite knitted scarf, the lab mix wagging his tail and the terrier prancing excitedly. The drizzle made its fur curl adorably. Hey, I said, stepping aside. You came. Rachel looked down at her dogs and stroked their ears. I promised I'd be here. I couldn't just leave them alone, Ava. I'm so sorry, she said softly. The tension in my chest grew. I felt a sick twist of guilt and panic together. She brought them inside despite what we said. I saw Josh and Emily freeze when they realized. Mia's eyes grew wide at the sight of the dogs. It's pretty wet out, I said, pointing. The words felt lame. Rachel nodded. I know. I didn't have anyone to watch them. I thought maybe I could just keep them in a corner for a bit. Her shoulders were tense. I swallowed, suddenly overwhelmed. I guess I just got worried. You know I like them, but the kids... I trailed off, unsure how to finish. I'll keep them quiet, Rachel insisted, her voice shaking slightly. But I could see how her eyes pleaded. She was already hurt by our brief conversation. I needed to hold on to this friendship, but I was about to snap. So I did something I regretted the moment it slipped out. I raised my voice a bit more than I intended before I could stop myself. Rachel, I really am so glad you came. I do love having you here, but I need one holiday where I don't have to worry. I don't want accidents or chaos. I need to focus on hosting and not have to manage dogs, okay? My own words startled even me. Suddenly, all eyes were on us. Mia started crying as if sensing the tension, and the dogs whimpered slightly. Everyone fell silent. Rachel's face fell. Her voice shook as she whispered, "I can't believe you would say that." She lowered her eyes to the floor. The lab mix and terrier circled to her side, licking her ankles comfortingly. My heart pounded. My face felt hot with shame and anger. I realized I had said too much, too harshly. She flinched as if I had hit her. There were tears in her eyes. I tried to soften my tone. I'm sorry, I managed, voice quivering. I want you here too, I do. I'm just so nervous with everything going on." Her eyes flashed with hurt and anger. "So maybe next time you could let me know properly," she said, her voice trembling as she struggled to keep it steady. "Instead of putting me in a position like this. Maybe I could—" I struggled to find the right words. She cut me off with a gentle but hurt sigh. Rachel stepped back, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she said softly, but there was an edge to it. I'll just leave." Without another word, she walked out the door. The lab mix and terrier followed behind her loyally. The terrier gave one small bark. Mia whimpered. I stood there in the doorway, stunned. The door closed with a soft click, and then silence. My friends gaped. Emily was the first to react. She quietly approached me with concern. "Is everything okay?" she asked gently. I stepped inside and gently closed the door. I could still hear the muffled sound of cars passing outside, nothing like the slam I expected. I'm sorry," I said softly to everyone, but especially to Mia, who was looking up at me as if asking for an explanation. I didn't have one. The kitchen was suddenly cold and quiet, except for the whistle of a kettle on the stove. The food on the counter had become a distraction I didn't want to face. I realized I had made a horrible mistake. "We can cook the rest," Josh said quietly. He was already at the stove, resetting the dial. He gave me a small, reassuring nod. Emily was wiping her eyes quickly, but she was trying to look brave for Mia. We did what we could. We finished preparing the food, carving the turkey, setting it out, but we all worked with heavy hearts. Josh passed me the gravy boat in silence, and I poured gravy over the mashed potatoes with shaking hands. Emily placed a slice of pie in front of me, and I managed a weak smile of thanks. But none of us felt very thankful. When it came time to sit down, there were empty chairs again, but now for Rachel and for everyone's unsettled feelings. We tried to carry on, lighting the candles and making an attempt at grace. Around the table, forced smiles passed between us as we took small bites of food. The turkey was still amazing, so well roasted, so tender, but I realized with a pang that I couldn't really taste it. The sweetness of the pumpkin pie was lost on me. My friends tried to talk over the meal, but the mood was stifled. Josh cracked a joke about how he burned the stuffing a little, getting a small chuckle from Emily, but my half-hearted laugh died in my throat. Mia, now in Emily's lap, poked at her mashed potatoes, but seemed quiet. We ate slowly. Every time I caught sight of the empty chair where Rachel should have been, a dull ache settled in my chest. My invitation card with her name was still placed at the table, as if waiting for her return. I kept looking back at the door, half expecting her to walk in, tail wagging, with apologies on her lips. But as the minutes passed, I knew she wasn't coming back. After dinner, I found myself at the sink, rubbing soap between my hands until they were pruny, trying to get the grease off my fingers as if I could scrub away what had just happened. I dried my hands on a towel and walked into the living room. It was dark except for the flickering candlelight that Emily hadn't gotten around to blowing out. The Friendsgiving decor around felt almost absurd now. I remembered something else. Last Thanksgiving, not our Friendsgiving, but the holiday meal with family, I had also had a problem with an unpredictable dog. Aunt Linda's poodle had started barking when the doorbell rang. I had felt anxious then, too, but brushed it off as silly. Perhaps my annoyance with dogs had begun there, even unconsciously, and it had spilled over into how I felt now. Walking quietly through the house, I picked up little items: a stray pack of napkins on the couch, a ponytail holder that Emily must have left behind. Everything looked exactly how we'd left it. Family photos on the wall, the same cheesy holiday throw pillows, but now something important was different. "I'm so sorry," I whispered to the empty room. "Why did I do that?" My reflection stared back at me from the TV screen, and I hardly recognized the puffy-eyed stranger who had yelled. Suddenly, I couldn't handle the quiet. I stomped up the stairs 2 at a time and sank onto my bed. I pulled the blanket tight around my shoulders. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the night wind gently rustled the leaves. In the silence of my room, I tried to hold back tears. It was almost midnight when everything finally settled. I poured a final cup of tea and sat on the porch steps, wrapped in a thick knit shawl. The night air smelled faintly of pine and the firewood Emily had brought. By the dim porch light, I watched fog drifting across the lawn. The towering oak in my front yard had survived every winter. Maybe our friendship would too, if we sheltered it with care now. I realized, even on cold nights, there was a certain warmth in knowing you'd try again. The next morning, the house was quiet, but for the lightening sky. I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of tea long after it cooled. The feast's aftermath lay in piles of boxes and folded napkins, but more importantly, a knot in my stomach still ached with what happened. In the pale dawn light, I replayed the whole scene in my mind. Rachel's face crumpled, her eyes filled with tears, the way her voice shook as she walked out the door. Every time I saw her hurt, I felt my heart twist. What had I done? It hit me that the house didn't feel empty because of the dogs. It felt empty because a piece of our family was gone. We had always been close, a chosen family of friends from college who stayed up late talking and never let a fight break us apart. And now here I was, bitterly realizing I might have crossed a line I couldn't easily uncross. The night had taught me a lesson the morning was still whispering. Boundaries are important, yes, but so is how we set them. Guilt sank into me, heavy as the turkey I had carved. Maybe I had been too rigid. Maybe I had been unfair. I closed my eyes, willing myself not to break into tears in front of the morning light. What could I do now? I could replay every word of our fight, but what would that change? I started to craft an apology in my mind, already imagining how it would sound. Would she even listen? Some small voice reminded me that one true friend was worth any difficulty. I remembered how Rachel had always been there for me. Her laughter, her kindness, how she came by last week when I was sick with soup and silly cat videos. She needed me, just as I needed her. My heart hurt thinking that the dogs, which she saw as her family, had somehow come between two people who had also become like family. Friends and their pets can be inseparable, and I hadn't considered what this would feel like for her. That realization stung. My phone buzzed and pulled me from my thoughts. It was a message from Emily. "Just checking in. You seem off. Want to grab some coffee later and talk?" Emily's quick kindness warmed me. I typed back with a small thank you emoji. Later that day, I wrapped myself in a scarf and stepped out into the chilly air. I walked to the nearby cafe where I knew I could be alone with my thoughts, sipping on hot lemonade. The street was quiet. Maple leaves danced in the wind. Something about the way the breeze rustled said, "Every quiet moment is a chance to learn." I realized then that I had been too caught up in the worry of chaos to appreciate the chance to celebrate with her. And that was a pity, because having Rachel there meant so much more than a dog hair on the floor. Friendship mattered more than any spotless house. By the time I returned home, I had sent Rachel a text. "You mean the world to me. I was wrong. Can we talk? I hate how I made you feel." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was the start. At dusk, my phone rang. I braced myself. It was her. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Hi," she said. We talked in soft tones, no anger, just honest words. She said she'd been hurt, and I said I understood and that I was sorry. She said she had been upset to think she was not welcome. I said nothing could be further from the truth. We both realized we had let this small thing grow bigger than it needed to be. By the end of that conversation, we were both crying in relief, and it felt better than any meal or laughter ever had. That night I helped her come over, and together we washed our hands of grudges more easily than the dishes. The dogs curled up contentedly in the sunroom, just as I promised. Walking through my now still house, I knew one thing for certain. In this messy, unexpected story of Friendsgiving, the real feast was the lesson of compassion I had harvested. I learned that honesty and kindness must guide us even when it's hard. Next time, I would be a better host and a better friend for the journey to healing. It was a Friendsgiving I would not forget, but now I see it as a gift in disguise. As the night ended, I turned off the lamps and stepped into the quiet street. The November breeze brushed my face gently. I looked up at the starry sky and thought about how in friendships, as in hosting, a little warmth and understanding can brighten even the coldest night. Sometimes the toughest gatherings teach us how to greet the next day with a kinder, more understanding heart. And, as I locked the door behind me, I took a deep breath, grateful for the calm that follows a storm, and for friends worth celebrating, no matter what.